Good news in Romans. It has been said that Romans is Paul's most comprehensive expression of God's message of grace. It was written to the church in Rome, a culturally and religious diverse group of people, so they could begin spreading the gospel of forgiveness to the rest of the world. That was 2,000 years ago, and to this day, Romans still tells us the same message of God's forgiveness for all humanity. Sometimes, because of the complexity of Paul's writing, pieces of Romans are misconstrued, resulting in a message of condemnation and judgment. It is important to look at Romans as a whole to fully understand Paul's message, which is ultimately one of God's love and forgiveness. Within the book, Paul sets up two important ideas: the law of judgment and the law of grace. The law of judgment was the existing framework by which people understood God and the world around them. It is a standard of virtue based on people's actions and attitudes that's humanly impossible to achieve and results in legalism, punishment, and judgment. The law of grace is God's forgiveness, which is unearned and results in life, peace, and hope for everyone who experiences it. We're going to use the word grace a lot because it's the point of the whole book. Paul begins Romans by introducing the problem of the human condition. God made all people, but over time, we stopped seeing him for who he is and instead became self-centered and corrupt. The Roman Church was facing divisions between the established religious community and non-traditional believers. The religious elite were judging others, though they themselves were just as corrupt and sinful. Paul immediately called out their hypocrisy, saying that within the framework of the law of judgment, they were just as guilty. Moreover, they had damaged God's reputation among non-believers, who easily spotted their hypocrisy and were turned off to the church. His point is that, according to the law, everyone is corrupt, no matter how righteous they try to appear, no matter their religious background, no matter their track record. Though some people may believe that their good actions make them right in God's eyes, in truth, the law of judgment only makes us more aware of our shortcomings. But Paul reminds us of the good news. The law of judgment doesn't matter anymore. God has replaced it with the law of grace. Jesus' death paid for all of the consequences that our corruption warranted under the old law. Now we're saved by God Himself through Jesus. The system doesn't pay attention to anyone's actions, qualifications, or backgrounds. It's the most fair system imaginable, one that includes literally any and everyone. If you truly understand the law of grace, there is no judgment or boasting or superiority, because it isn't based on us, but on God's own desire to forgive every one of us. Once you begin to believe this, you've stepped out of the law of judgment and begun to live in grace. You'd think Paul would leave it there, but he goes on to explain how this good news affects our day-to-day. We're all still human and struggle with our inevitable mistakes. If we continue to live under the law of judgment, we'll always be burdened by guilt. God knows we'll never be perfect, so He lives with us in spirit. His Spirit allows us to have a personal connection with His love, which frees us from guilt and condemnation, replacing it with peace and trust in Him. His Spirit in us not only shows us His love, but allows us to share it with others, shaping how we interact with the world. It gives us the power to overcome our human condition and love our neighbors. The beauty of this love is that it fulfills the old law and every law that people or religion can ever make. Paul ends by re-emphasizing God's goal, that everyone on earth will know God's forgiving grace and love through Jesus. It's our task to spread this message by living as His Spirit leads us.